Oh, not at all. I'm gonna be looking at YouTube this entire time. Alright, between you and me. Alright. So again, just thank you all so much for being here. I honestly appreciate so much just being able to even just hang out and kind of talk about why I'm doing this. I think is really good for even just me to just kind of clarify why I think I want to do this. So obviously there's a couple questions of like, what is YWAM? What am I going to be doing on the trip? And I'll get to that a little bit later. Before I get to what YWAM is and what I'll be doing there, I actually wanted to start with kind of telling a bit of the story of what has brought me to wanting to do YWAM and why I think it's important for me to do YWAM. So I think the moment in my life that has led me to wanting to do YWAM actually started a very long time ago. Actually started, I think, when I was in 4th grade. I had the opportunity to do a mission trip where I went to Haiti. And that was a very life-changing experience, but when looking at that experience and talking to my parents about what it was like taking me, a grade 4 kid, to Haiti, I remember my mom saying that it was interesting for her taking me because a lot of people told her that I was way too young to go on this trip. And I've thought a lot about that idea that I was too young to go in grade 4, and in some ways I think they were actually incredibly correct. Not in the way that they think they were, but I think I was too young in some aspects. For example, mainly being, I was far too young to be able to just explain it away as the way things were. If I were to go now, I've done some university courses in sociology and sustainability studies. If I went now, I could tell you all, oh, Haiti is the 2nd lowest country in regards to GDP. Because of this, there's lots of socio-economic problems in the country. There's lots of problems, there's lots of poverty rates. Because of that, there's lots of violence. And I could explain it using lots of academic words that just dismiss the whole thing. But when I went as, grade 4, what was that, like 8, 9? I was far too young to be able to do that. I just knew that when I got there and I saw the things that I was seeing, I just knew it was a problem and it wasn't right. There's multiple images that are just burnt into my mind. Upon getting there, one of the first things I remember is we were getting to our shuttle and there's 2 gentlemen who had been disfigured. They were both missing limbs, and they were asking if we could give them money. And I remember being like, oh, hey, these guys don't have legs and arms, like, how much can we give them? And the person who was leading us said, we can't give them anything, because if we do, they're just, however much we give them, they'll think that we gave the other person more, and they will probably fight or kill each other for the other person's money. Again, if I went now, I could tell you that's just the result of the socio-economic problems of the area. When I was 8, 9, I was far too young to do that. I just knew that that was the most horrible thing I've ever heard in my entire life. That these people had gone through so much and we couldn't even do anything about it because they would just hurt themselves more. I remember I was driving by a village of just metal toppled and leaning together, and I was, what the heck is this, all this metal leaning against each other, and people, I think it was my mom or the leader said that's where those people around that metal, that's where they live. And again, now I can tell you it's a shanty town, that's just how some people live, but at 8 years old, I was far too young to know that. I just knew that those were not houses. Here in Calgary, I live in a house, it's warm, I have a bathroom, I feel very safe there. That's a bunch of metal leaning against other metal, that's not a house. And again, I think those people were right that I was too young, but I was too young because I couldn't just explain it away. I knew that this was wrong. When we went on this trip, the purpose of the trip was to help at this orphanage and the orphans there. And again, now I could tell you, I was coming from suburban Calgary, which is in Canada, one of the highest places. So I was there to serve them, and they were poor and they needed help. But I was far too low to even think of that. I just knew that these were my new friends and that they were super fun to play soccer with. And again, that event was very impactful, just how I have found myself viewing the world. That, along with other mission trips, has left me just with this feeling that there's there's a lot that needs to be done. And again, even just with these people at the orphanage, those guys were my friends, and I was frustrated that people that I would consider my friends were going through such horrible situations and living in such horrible conditions. So I knew that led me to know that I wanted to use my life to make the world a slightly better place. But then I kind of had to figure out how was I going to do that. So, especially when I was young, I'll start or join a charity. And so, they're the people that do all the good stuff. And so I was thinking, oh, what charities should I join? But then I started doing research on NGOs and different charities, and I realized that there was actually a problem with the very model. Most NGO charities have to spend most of their time and resources fundraising, and they become very reliant on this funding and grants. And so while the people have amazing intentions and they want to spend all their time fixing these real problems, lots of times they're very distracted, or by necessity, on doing fundraising, securing grants. If the grants go away, suddenly it's a huge problem and they aren't able to do many of the programs they want to do. I just found that was a very inefficient model to do things. And I found myself always being drawn to business models because, you hear all these businesses, you hear the profit margins these companies have. At the end of the year, they have millions in net profit. I was always thinking, like, man, you could do so much good with millions of dollars in net profit. This is just money that they, after all expenses are paid for, they just have millions of dollars that they can do anything really that they want with. But then you also hear that it's the businesses that are causing all the problems. So I found myself very conflicted on, like, I want to do good, but I want to be efficient like a business, because again, it's the businesses that seem to make everything actually happen in our society. And I was very conflicted until I heard about an organization called Tom's Shoes. Many of you have likely heard about it. I'll just use an example because there's the first company I ever heard of that introduced me to the topic of social enterprises. And what the business model is basically you have a business model, but it involves in the mission statement, the constitution of the business. They also say that the point of this business is not just to make money, but is also to fix a social problem. For Tom's, it was providing shoes for people who can't afford shoes. And so for every pair of shoes you would buy, they would give a pair of shoes away, and they were able to give out millions of shoes. And I looked at this business model, and I kind of just knew immediately that this is what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. I wanted to be effective and have the financial sustainability of a business where if you know what you're doing, you can just keep selling products efficiently and keep making new products, but at the same time, if you do it correctly, oh, you can turn that mic up a little bit. Yeah. Is that better? Yeah. Okay. So yeah, if again, these businesses are just able to sustain themselves financially very well. Also, everyone I've ever met is in 100 ways connected to businesses. They're the ones who employ people, they're the ones who change lives, they're the ones that are creating good products and services in their area. And if you're able to be ethical in business, you're able to just affect so many different areas of life where, say, a charity they have a cause and they affect that cause, but a business affects how many employees, times their family, times the industries that they supply to, times the areas that they are supplying. So I just saw business and businesses as by far the most potent area to really affect the world, and so I knew I wanted to operate there. So I decided that I was going to get a business degree. And while I was there, I was like, okay, I want to learn how to make a business, so let's get a business degree. But while I was there, I also started doing more research into businesses and especially social enterprises, and I realized that actually that wasn't enough either, because I started looking at concepts of sustainability and the concept known as system changing. And so the concepts of viewing the world as systems, and if you change one aspect of a system, how does it change other aspects of a system? So I found now I'm getting a sustainability certificate so I could actually know how to do that correctly. For example, Tom's Shoes, they had amazing intentions, but with their business model, they're giving away all these free shoes, they actually ended up crashing almost the entire shoe industry in Africa, which is obviously somewhat of a problem if you're trying to make Africa a better place. Crashing one of their major industries, probably not what you want to do. So I found that if I was going to do this, I wanted to do it right. And something I've always asked myself, like, if I want to start a business, why don't I just start the business and then I'll learn along the way and learn by failure? That's a very entrepreneurship concept. But with something as important, if I'm going to try and change a society or an economy, I don't want to be messing around. I don't want to be learning through failure if I'm playing with potentially other people's lives. I mean, well, an example I like to use is, should a surgeon learn through study and practice and controlled practice, or should they do surgeries and do trial and error until they figure out how to do the surgery? I think many of us would agree that a surgeon should learn through study and not be messing around with other people's lives. And I thought this was the idea of changing societies and economies and systems through business. I think that's a big enough deal to warrant knowing what you're doing when you start. So, we're almost done, don't worry. So, kind of, for me, this YWAM trip is not just a YWAM trip. This is future training, and it's training with a very specific end. I've looked and studied local social enterprises. There's a lot of really good ones in Calgary. I've looked at international ones, and with system thinking, that's the term I was looking for, looking at social enterprise as a system and what they're able to do right now, I've repeatedly found that there's the same gap internationally, and that is that these social enterprises, they work amazingly well and they're able to do amazing, but because they don't have amazing profit margins, just because so much of their profit goes towards these social projects. And so the one area that they're able to kind of not invest in is marketing. And so I could name, like, all of the time I'm finding new amazing social enterprises that I've never heard of before, but that's because their model relies on word of mouth marketing. So again, they have fantastic stories. The moment you hear about the company and figure out what they do, you're instantly in love. But it's a very slow process because you need to hear of it from a friend who needs to hear of it from a friend. And so I just found that there is a huge lack of marketing and awareness in the industry. So what I want to do, and this is actually why I'm taking my business degree, is I want to start a retail store that focuses on social entrepreneurship and social enterprise, and basically just be a place in a mall where you can go and you know every purchase you make is making the world actually a better place, or a place where you can buy stuff and you don't have to worry about what Chinese manufacturing place is this being built or sold in and manufactured. You can go in and you can know that you're making the world a better place and have information sheets informing you how this is a good place and this is what this company does and this is how this company is helping this area and explaining how that area works. So be a distribution and marketing firm all in one, and I think this world would be a dramatically better place if something like that existed, so that's what I want to do. But how does that relate to YWAM? Because I haven't mentioned YWAM yet. If I'm going to do my idea, and I think this is an important idea, if I actually believe God has called me to do this idea. If I'm going to do this, I want to do it right. And how I have looked at it is I have training that in business. I'm taking a bachelor's in commerce. I'm getting training in looking at social systems and how they operate through my sustainability certificate. But I still think that there is a massive gap in ministry. Through my life, the thing that has gotten me through everything, the goods, the bads, is my relationship with God. And it is, to me, the most important aspect of my life, and I think it is the most powerful aspect that can happen to anyone. Again, through my personal experiences, I won't go into all of them, but I honestly don't know what my life would be like